that's quite a lot of things clear. So just let's talk a little bit more about India's G20 presidency. Like what? So now we've sort of understood what all these meetings have been through the year, and but if you can just explain what these were and what the summit is and what can we expect out of the summit now.
So I hope, I must confess that G20 is quite a handful. So if I've been able to explain, and if you say that you've understood, I'm glad that people are understanding and I've been able to explain something. But it is quite there's a lot happening. India assumed its G20 presidency from 1st of December 2022. We took over from Indonesia, which is also an emerging market economy. We will hold this presidency till 30th November 2023. So even though we are having our summit now in September, that doesn't mean that our job is over. We have the presidency till 30th November 2023. We are the 18th presidency of G20. Before us, 17 other countries have held this presidency. Like I said, right before us was Indonesia, before that was Italy, and before that was Saudi Arabia. The theme of India's G20 presidency, I'm sure all of us, most of us who are listening to this have interest in the subject, must have seen on the hoardings Vasudevam Kutumbakam, which is one earth, one family, one future. Essentially, the theme affirms the value that all life and their interconnectedness. I'll say this again. So, essentially, the theme affirms the value of all life and their interconnectedness. And I think this is something which is very important at this moment. We've survived the pandemic. There have been a lot of, obviously, there were aftermaths, both economic, health. There were a lot of other issues which people faced. We're still going through a lot of climate crises, heat waves, and most of us are experiencing that. And I feel that I think the theme is absolutely, it's quite contextual. It is apt for the moment that we are in, and I'm quite proud of the country to take up something which is so inclusive, and it's about everybody and not just us. This is also the as I would say, this is also the core. This is the heart of the G20. It was formed because in the very first place, it was realized that the world is interconnected and we need to come together for coordinated responses to any crisis that the world faces. So the G20 summit, which is the main event of any presidency, is when, like I said, all the leaders and head of G20 members meet. There are also certain invitee countries, like for us, India has invited Singapore, Bangladesh, UAE, which are not members of the G20, but these have been invited by India to participate in the G20 meetings and summit. They were there through the working group meetings. They were also invited. They are also invited to the summit. So they all participate in these meetings. The summit, as we all now know, is scheduled from 9th and 10th of September. It is an annual event now, and in that sense, for us, this is the grand finale. The summit will be chaired by the Prime Minister of India, and it will be attended by the heads of states of all the G20 members and the invitee countries. Like I said, in the run-up to the summit, until we hand over the presidency to Brazil, we still have to have more meetings. We will have these working group and ministerial meetings that are planned as a part of finance track, Sherpa track, and the engagement group. So, talking more about the Indian presidency and the type of meetings that were planned as a part of the Indian presidency, I would say that under the finance track, there were 4 main working groups. These are Framework Working Group, International Financial Architecture Working Group, Infrastructure Working Group, and Sustainable Finance Working Group. There are other work streams and task forces that fall under the broad umbrella of the finance track, and India's Finance Minister, Honorable Finance Minister Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, has been helming many of these meetings. Under the Sherpa track, we have 13 working groups in 4 initiatives. And, in the past, there were a fewer number of working groups under both finance and Sherpa track. But over the years, as the number of issues that the G20 have shown interest to discuss have increased, the number of working groups have also increased. And the issues which are not clubbed as working group, or issues which are not I would say perhaps continuous in nature or which require continuity in the discussion are often convened as task forces or just issues that are discussed outside of the working group. So under Sherpa track, we have 13 working groups and 4 initiatives. Most of these working group meetings are actually convened by the relevant line ministries, and these outcomes are also discussed with the G20 Sherpa, and Mr. Amitabh Kant, who was earlier the head of Niti Aayog, has been nominated by India as the G20 Sherpa. Apart from these, like I said, there are engagement groups which also have their meetings. They have these task forces that pick up relevant issues and discuss, and then these task force reports are also submitted to the presidency. So the discussions that have taken place in these different meetings that have happened so far, the finance track and Sherpa track meetings, these discussions feed into the discussions and the meetings that will take place under the summit. After which the G20 members will come together and release a statement or a declaration that will summarize the discussions held between these leaders. So, in terms of what to expect out, in terms of the tangible outcome that you expect right after the summit, please wait for a document that is released right after the summit, which is released by all the leaders under the Indian presidency. So, while these statements and declarations do not have any legal binding within the G20 system, because, like I said, it's an informal forum. However, the G20 communiques lay out the intent of G20 members, which are then pursued by the relevant international organizations. So, if something is discussed or agreed upon with respect to trade, it will be passed on to the World Trade Organization.
Okay.